Hey, YouTube BitChute friends. I'm going to just play maybe a minute or so of this person, Dr. Shiva, and just to indicate or just to let you know, I'm going to attach this link. You can have a look at this chart. Uh, Very organic looking chart. He's going to draw it for you. Let me just play it for some seconds, a minute or so.
Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. How a very small set of people control 8 billion people. This is what I call the elite. Let's say there's about 10,000 of them. How is it these people are able to manipulate the 8 billion people here? If you talk to a lot of naive people, they think, oh, it's the Rothschilds over here, or it's the aliens. They don't understand it's not any one individual.
Okay, you get the idea. It's a 15-minute video. It's worthwhile seeing. I'm going to go to my face right now and be right back. I had come across this fellow a while back, Shiva for President. I don't think I made a video or commented on it, but I thought I'm going to just comment briefly on something that is quite obvious, and he's made a fabulous presentation. I think it's worthwhile to look at his analysis of what the Elohim, or the elite, as they're known in contemporary culture, modern culture, maybe even back whenever, hundreds of years ago, they were called the elites, based on the Kabbalistic notion of El or Elohim. I should probably do a bit of an explanation of the Elohim as it is understood through the numerical values of the letter numbers or the Hebrew alphabet. I think I've touched on this several times, that Kabbalistic knowledge is not a nefarious program running underneath everything else. It's just a way of understanding complexity. Complexity is basically something that is just not understood by the human mind as and there are alternatives to understanding, in the sense of I think that's very apropos to the Shiva presentation. Understanding, I mean, words can do so much for us in terms of understanding something, and complexity is, what was not understood before is complexity, and as it's understood, it's no longer complex. So the term elite was implanted in us. Some suggest that the EL, like Cliff High, that I listen to, very entertaining, considers the EL or elites in that sort of biblical context as the mucky fucks who intervened in our evolution, development, who we are as people. We really don't know how all this fits together, how we're structured in its origin. Like, the origin of creation is not well understood. There is biblically, from especially that Kabbalistic point of view, they give it a go. Maybe there is some the value in the biblical story is not so much in the fairy tale part of it, but the actual analysis of the letter numbers, which unfortunately most scholars are not familiar with anymore, if they ever were. Very few of them. The rabbis that understood were responsible for analyzing the there are textbooks on Kabbalah in order to ease the frustration of not understanding it, but it is very complex. And the Elohim is a concept. Kabbalistically, actually, it refers to the evolutionary process of the Aleph in existence. This is a numerical analysis of the equation. The Elohim is an equation, is a number. Anyway, yeah, it's not a topic I want to get into today, but people like Cliff High, who figures, who I've called a sort of word nerd, who thinks he's got the world by the balls in terms of his understanding and how successful he has been in peripheralizing the riffraff and rising through the scum to the surface. It's a little bit extreme, my analysis, but I think this is what happens with people that are narcissistic and see themselves as special because of things that they know. And this is not the objective of our development as human beings. It is to be of service and bring others into that sort of elevated state of being that our evolution is very closely tied to the idea of us being of service and bringing through our personal intelligence and insight and inspiration, bringing others into that level of sharing and being part of something. And we all have something to offer, however small it may appear. We all have something to offer. Dr. Shiva has something to offer that is quite, from the surface, you look at this, it is a superb analysis of how the bastards have been able to manipulate a large portion of the population. And again, I think everyone has their personal challenges and the process that we go through in order to raise ourselves through the different layers of what could be called consciousness. I prefer to see it through the layers of conscience. In other words, the idea that we are sentient is, as any matter itself is sentient. If you get into the very nitty gritty of consciousness, everything is consciousness. But in terms of our understanding of consciousness, what is, it's kind of like it's an irrelevant term in a sense, consciousness. It just means, like Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. It's that kind of presence of everythingness, is to say, there's everything. Oh, okay, so what? There's everything. What is my significance in everything? Or what is our significance as people in everything? And my conclusion, what I always talk about and came to over the last probably 8-10 years, is that the conscience part of consciousness is the pivotal platform for the human species, for humankind. And it may apply in some version to other conscious beings that we consider to be life forms on Earth with us. Animals, I don't know. There is indication that animals have this innate quality of service to each other as well in some way. We may not understand it because we're idiosyncratic in our understanding. We are like focused, anthropomorphic or anthropogenic. We think of everything in terms of us. What else can we do? We're fish in the water. We don't know what it's like to be outside the fishbowl. Okay, Shiva, Dr. Shiva. I was impressed by his clear and succinct analysis of the bastards, who he considers to be a swarm. I like that analogy too. A swarm of maybe 10,000. Could be more, because I think the royal family, just on its own, the royals, the people that are incapable of wiping their own asses, have like that kind of number all on their own. If you look at the royalty on Earth, you're probably looking at 10,000 right there, and they're all in the game. I mean, they're all in the game of the swarm. So I think he's underestimating the size of the swarm, although the most influential elements or individuals in the swarm, it may be a lot less than 10,000. And again, we'll never know who they are. It's kind of an insidious clan that hides itself from itself, because there is such clear, there is such a level of vulgarity amongst this class of people. They dispense with each other at the drop of a it's like they have no hesitation to kill and eliminate each other, such as, for example, the murder of Kennedy, King. These are all insiders that were done away with. Epstein, Um, so, and I think to some extent they hide each other from each other, although they're influential. Somebody knows somebody, but certainly even within this clan, and if he's right, let's say the number 10,000. I think it's more, but uh, most of them know each other. But the highest level of individual within the swarm is likely even not known to those elements within the swarm. Watch the video and you'll understand what I mean when I say the swarm, as Shiva says it. I like the name. And my reference today is, I made the video a couple of times now. I said the next shit show is going to be presented to us by a saint. And this is something, again, that Shiva touches on in terms of the people that are propagated as the so-called saviors to our experience here on earth, that these people like a Kennedy now, that Owen Benjamin so amazingly, fabulously dissected, humiliated, and I think that's the only way to get at them, to make fun of them, because they seem to have very little response to any kind of serious attack on them, in the sense of through the justice system or any kind of even insurrection. They seem to be totally immune. Maybe not totally. I think there's a point at which, let's say, the Ceausescu or Mussolini moment comes and people are just so fed up. And then the old boss, new boss kind of kicks in, I suppose, in some way. But these types are so immune, but what they're not immune is us to laugh at them. I think they're very sensitive to be ridiculed. They may not show it overtly, but I think Owen Benjamin is onto something when he does the ridicule, or comedians in general have the ability to expose through ridicule and making fun of somebody. Yeah, I think it works. It's a good idea. And you should see Owen Benjamin's tirade on what he calls Booby Kennedy, the what is it, RFK Jr. Um, tirade on his voice alone, how he swallowed a vibrator, and it's painful to listen to this guy. And I thought it was like superb. And again, it references what I wanted to say, my idea that the next shit show is going to be brought in by the saints. And he's identified this saint. I said so in the video, and Shiva is confirming this, that we are riddled with operatives the swarm presents to us, that we're supposed to absorb into our bosom. We want these people, these savior types, to come in. Now, my small contribution, and I'm going to make just one. I'm going to have a reference to Shiva that makes me question, because I always say, people that are so high profile have a dog in the fight in some way, and we may not be able to identify uh, the thing that might be troublesome. Um, well, I'll say just briefly, my whole hang up with the uniform, what I consider to be the uniform of our contemporary culture, and whatever it goes back to, I'm not sure how far when it became significant, is the whole idea of wearing a tie, a suit and a tie. And I think it goes back to a ritual, apparently Masonic ritual of the noose around your neck, which is a reference to submission, I believe. It's my interpretation that if you're led around by a noose around your neck in a ritual of initiation, the tie, what is considered to be the contemporary uniform of well-dressedness or corporate dressedness, all these types wear suits and ties. And I think this is problematic for me because, again, it indicates submission to a system. And Shiva wears a suit and a tie, and he says to himself, well, this is the accepted uniform. Well, why you I can sort of see you cannot impress on people who are conditioned to look at you and say, if you don't wear a suit and a tie, you're not worth listening to. But then again, on a certain level, you are complicit and complying with the images or the representations of our downfall, the thing that is actually suppressing and repressing the enlightenment of people coming to their higher selves of conscience, you're saying, well, he's not even exercising his own conscience by wearing the noose around his neck. This is troublesome for me. You see, we need to be able to maintain a level of criticism based on a very fundamental aspect of our nature, which I say it's conscience. It's the most rudimentary platform without any emotional attachments. I mean, people will argue with me and say, well, you know, there's a much higher principle in conscience, and that is love. Of course, you can invoke, but I'm saying I'm not discarding that. I'm just saying that a more fundamental or more accessible understanding of how things are being easily manipulated is not that we're not loving, but that we don't exercise our conscience, the ability to choose the right from the wrong on any level, in any way. That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. And I think people who are not understanding this, or even in some very overt way explaining their own relationship with conscience. It can be done in many different ways, I think. You can explain I mean, Shiva, if you give him the benefit, he's someone very concerned about the well-being of the general population, not the elites, not his little clan. It appears that way. And we can extract that which works and discard that which doesn't work. So anyway, it's a very personal choice. People need to reflect and think, be able to bear the frustration of not knowing in some way, the very nature of something, because it's how everything around us seems to work. We're in a mystery. We don't know. So the knee-jerk thing is to be frustrated by not knowing, or lashing out, or whatever it is that people resort to in order to alleviate that anxiety. The level of anxiety, it's like a short-temperedness, or your inability to maintain a connection with a person, because I feel I'm struggling with this quite often, the irritation that I feel when something isn't forthcoming in a way that I would like it to be, and then I sort of lash out a bit. I got to be very aware of this, because the ability to bear the frustration on any level, not certainly if there's a transgression, if someone is overtly offensive and hurtful, you don't bear the frustration of being hurt. No, you confront it and get on with it, you know, expose it and talk about it and discard the person, you know, forget about them or work with them, whatever you need to do. So this is a long roundabout way of saying, I told you so. And people like told you so that the next shit show will be delivered by a saint. And it's nothing new. I think that the Shiva person, he's just sort of not even considered Kennedy in the smallest way of being of a value to our general well-being, the population. They are not people who are interested and concerned about the well-being of humanity, and whatever our entire earth is not their interest in terms of you and me. And he's identified this very well, and I'm just saying that he has discarded them, but I thought I'd make that video. I wasn't specifically thinking about Kennedy, but there will be other people that will very likely fit the bill. Kennedy is so obvious because he's got a history of depravities. That entire clan and family is full of examples that, you know, even Owen Benjamin uncovered them in a very short period of time, all the things this guy has stood for. Same with Shiva, and uncovered all the depravities of this despicable individual who presents himself with this creepy voice and wanting to tug on our heartstrings and say, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you, but over here, I'm going to knock over all the China and the China shop. He's been knocking over the China and the China shop for the last 50. That entire family has been knocking over the China and the China shop since they've been around, from Joseph Kennedy and all the all the hugeness. Their clan is huge. They have like connection everywhere. Anyway, just thought I'd alert you to this fabulous diagram that Shiva constructs. It's fairly easy to follow. It's something that everyone has been pounding away. The alternative types have been pounding away at this, and Shiva has synopsized it quite well. So you don't need to think about it anymore. After, in the sense of trying to identify, the only thing I would say is um, I've always been kind of curious about the core group, what Cliff High calls the Khazarian Mafia. The people, okay, a little add-on here, the Khazarian Mafia. He locates them somewhere in the, I think, 11th century or 10th century, maybe, Ukraine area, the Khazarian Mafia. Uh, it's the Ashkenazi connection in some way. Um, I differ with this Khazarian, Cliff High Khazarian Mafia. In my understanding, and this is through Fomenko, history, fiction, or science, an excellent dissertation on the nature of how history is structured in order to inculcate us into a bullshit story. His contention is that when the barbarians came across the mountains in Italy during the time of the Romans, when the Roman Empire fell, they basically decimated the bastards at the time, but allowed them to escape into the swamps of Venice. And they laughed and said, those poor fuckers are going to be eaten by the mosquitoes and the bugs that are the size of Buicks. They're not going to survive the swamps of Venice. Well, this bunch was very resilient. They took their minimal, whatever wealth they were able to accumulate or carry on their backs to leave and escape. They reconstructed and reinvented themselves what Fomenko believes to be the Dutch banking system. Sort of, I think the Dutch were the first to do the banking in the Middle Ages, or even just prior to that, maybe 800. So they rose like a phoenix out of the swamps of Venice and perpetrated that same shit that the empire represented, the Roman Empire. They transferred this into the European sphere in general, and it's a much more likely scenario for me that these bankers were in fact the backbone of our demise after the Roman Empire. So it's sort of it was passed on. Not that it was passed on; they reinvented themselves through the banking system. And they may have branches, offshoots, in, as Cliff High asserts, somewhere in Ukraine. Yeah, it's this Khazarian mafia bunch, I think would probably be more, it's more likely that banking cartel that fundamentally ruled the money, and then you rule the world if you rule the money. Um, yeah, I think I'll leave it there, and it's worthwhile watching, and the Saints are going to be put in front of us now. They're going to find lots of other saints to, from Joe Rogan to, whoever you think is of such value to you. Beware, beware. Everyone is suspect, including Shiva and Owen Benjamin, who are so wonderful in all this. I see the flaw. I saw the flaw in Shiva with the tie. I see the flaw in Benjamin with his narcissism. But we can take stuff that works for us, and my contention always is the bottom line is our own conscience will guide us through this morass of confusion, whatever it is the elites would like, as he described, would like us to be a part of this dysfunctional society, this distorted, dysfunctional nature we have, because we no longer exercise the highest part of ourselves, which has nothing to do with art or ability of intellect, none of that shit. Nobody, I have no regard whatsoever in terms of this fundamental platform of rightness, which is our conscience, no matter how smart or how incredibly erudite or artistic or capable you are. It doesn't mean those people aren't actually working on that fundamental level of conscience. I'm saying that unless it's there, all that other stuff is garbage and useless to me. So, hope that helps. My thoughts today. All the best to you.